Hi, this is this week's video. Hopefully it'll be a shorter than usual video because we're in the middle of the second speech right now. But I'm going to get the class started on the third speech and cover the terms we briefly looked at before the speech. So we'll get started on that, and we'll have a participation in the middle of this as well. So make sure you get that done. All right, let's get started. We're going to the slides. Yay, I know you're happy. All right. Problem with doing these recordings at Southgate is not the best Wi-Fi. No. And then this computer's old. Let's get going. All right, share screen. So we're going to talk about we're talking about your next speech. It's a couple things. First off, this speech is what we would call a 6 minute speech event. So 6 minute speech event. So you have an extra minute to pack in and more stuff for your speech. Same outline. So what's required? I have to change this slide because I have questions on there and it should be evaluation. Um, I'm lazy. I'm sorry. Uh, so 6 minute speech event. What's required is that your outline, just like before, same outline that you find in files. And just like the second speech where you have that reference page, you're going to have a reference page. Questions. That's your evaluation form. That's your evaluation forms. I really need to change that slide. And presentation is your speech, right? So here's the presentation, and I'll just cover, there's stuff I'm going to cover in class, like the band list. I'll briefly cover here, but I'll go in greater detail in class. So present a problem solution speech about an issue, right? It's a persuasion speech. That means you need to go out there and find a social issue that it could be an international one, it could be something big, and or or it could be a local issue as long as there's research, and find a problem and then a solution. And it does, by the way, it doesn't have to be your solution. You can research and, oh yeah, somebody proposed this idea to change something. Okay. So lots of different things that are out there, lots of different issues, and so forth. We'll do some brainstorming when we get to that part of the class. All right. Topical issue, recommend macro subject. So again, the reason why I say that is sometimes students will suggest something that's just way too small in scope, and they'll have research. And I really don't want to waste time asking you guys, hey, go research and come back and tell me if you found enough research on the library database. It's pretty obvious when what is an issue that could be talked about or researched about and what is not. So I've had students talking about like stop signage, and they wanted to research it, and I'm like, go find it, and they didn't find it, so they couldn't do the topic. I know there's people out there who are like, oh, this really ticks me off, but is it a major issue or is it just something in that moment? And if it's something in that moment, the problem that you might be discussing might just be so minute that there's no research for you. All right. And then the other thing I always warn students, and I said this in the second speech, don't choose a topic you think will be popular because you think there's a lot of research. I'm going to take a speech. I know there's a lot of research out there, even though I don't know much about the subject or I don't care about it. I'm going to choose this because there's a lot of stuff out there. I can always tell, right? So find a problem that you actually care about, that you might know something about, and then look for solutions and present a problem solution speech. All right. We'll do some brainstorming in class for that. All right. So just um, go through those possibilities in your head. I'll briefly cover the band list, but we'll go more in detail. So a couple things. First off, like always, the speech can't be connected to any of your other speeches. So if you want to be in law enforcement, you can't do a speech about law enforcement. Like your first speech was about your future. If your second speech was about investments, and you can't do anything about the stock market or anything like that. So it can't be anything that's connected to any of your other speeches. All right. So that's number one. Um, that's the easy way to eliminate a lot of possibilities. Let's see what else is there. Again, big issue, topical. But here's a big one. Here's a huge one, and this is one that gets people a bit. It has to be a change. It has to be real change. It can't be more of the same or more of the same. So, for example, there's a lot of topics out there. There's two sides that can debate it, like abortion, right? Because there's real change there. If you're pro-life, there are states that still have Roe v. Wade standards. And if you're pro-choice, there are now states that don't have the Roe v. Wade standards because of the Supreme Court ruling. So obviously, there's a federal law that can be passed on by either side. That would be real change, right? So same thing with the death penalty. There's no death penalty states in the United States. There are pro death penalty states. So there has to have some kind of change. I have a lot of students who are like, "Oh, I'm gonna do drunk driving." Do you know we actually have really strong laws against drunk driving already? Unless you're pro drunk driving, which by the way, don't do that speech. There's no research. There's no research for pro drunk driving. But you like there's anti-littering laws, there's anti-drunk driving laws. I mean, there's so much already out there. So more of the same is not much of a change, and more of the same is really not a change. You would have to do some kind of extremist thing, like but even then, the problem then is research, and how much research is there on if we do something extreme for drunk drivers or something like that. So avoid topics that we already have it, right? And here's another thing. Here, avoid something that's kind of settled now. So a popular speech before the Supreme Court decision was for gay marriage, right? For gay marriage was a popular speech, but here's the thing: it's legal in the United States now. It's legal in the United States, and the U.S. Congress passed a law that pretty much solidified it and said, "Man, you can't do anything about it." Right? So unless something, if you're against gay marriage, obviously you can actually do that speech because there's actual change there. But if you're for gay marriage and there's not much change there, unless you want the federal government, the U.S. government, to push gay marriage to other countries again, and the research is just not there. So find something that there's actual change, right? Homelessness, there's actual change there because there's people who think that we should go after homelessness only for mental health. And then there's people who think we should just build little houses. And there's so many different possibilities there. That's real change. And then there's people who believe in homeless rights. That would be the opposite, like where they're like, no, we can't, we gotta let them be and just provide services. So lots of possibilities there. So find something that is there's change. Change is a possibility. All right. Just like last time, no, we don't debate the facts here. So no anti-vaccine, no climate change denial. And if you have no election denial speeches, and if you have no conspiracy speeches, if you have a problem with that individual thing, you want to talk to me about it, that's fine. Let's see what else is there. No informative topics. You can't talk about something that's neutral. You can't talk about it a different way. You're changing minds, you're changing behavior. In this case, problem solution is changing behavior. So, yeah. By the way, changing something does not mean personal change. Some people think that, oh, maybe if I promote healthy living, because that's the next thing. You have to have a solution, a viable solution with an actual agency. And we'll talk about it more because there's this thing I say that I'm not going to record, which is that there's some um, ideas that just don't work and they're not credible. But it's how I say it. It's nothing inflammatory or anything. But the thing is, the reason why those kind of self-help speeches are not is you can't force people to self-help themselves. So what I mean by that is if you go after like if you're anti-gay marriage, because I mentioned it earlier, you would say, I will pass a law that bans, and that one you have to do a constitutional amendment. So you would have to pass a constitutional amendment. If you're pro-choice, right, then you would be pass a federal law to codify Roe v. Wade, right? So you can see here, there's actual laws that can be changed, or you can spend money. Like if you think homelessness is a huge issue and you want to spend $1 billion on the homeless problem across the country, put it in the federal budget, right? Additional $1 billion, and um, we're going to tax pharmaceutical companies on their profit because they made quite a bit of profit on the exploitation of painkillers, which cause a lot of people to become homeless. Real solutions, not let's all come together and feel mellow. Doesn't work. Telling people to go vote a certain way doesn't work. It has to be like laws, budgets, stuff like that. And we'll talk about it more in class. PowerPoint now, 3 to 5 slides, 3 to 5 slides. I gotta change this, but it's 3 to 5 slides, just like last time. 3 to 5 slides, 3 to 5 slides. But this is different. Last time, the last speech, it was 5 references. Now last time it was 3 references. Now it's 5 references. Five you have to reference. On your outline, no in-text citation. On your outline, it's just a reference page. And in your speech, you have to say according to or in. Recommend business casual. That's actually a holdover from my Cal State LA days. I just keep it on the slide because I like to promote good nonverbal choices. But you don't have to do it in class. That just disregard that if you don't worry about it. Evaluation. Yay, Southgate. Evaluation, same as last time, except just like the second speech, the questions will be different. But it's the same thing. One student, you just evaluate one student. Outline, same as last time, except now you have 5 references. And it's a problem solution speech, and we'll go more into detail in class where I can use the dry erase board. I can use it right now. Oh my gosh, the only time they don't have a dry erase marker at my ready. I think the guy got upset because I left a note saying, hey, clean up after yourself. All right, anyways, here we go. Problem, solution. That's how you would do it. So main point 1, problem, main point 2, problem, main point 3 would be a solution. And I'll talk and explain this in class and later how this is done in your speech, because big problem that connects to solution. So I'll explain how that's done. All right, save your questions for when we meet or Canvas. Let's go on to the next slide. Oh, your participation for today. Your participation is brainstorming. We're not going to be able to brainstorm in class because it's half hybrid, half in class, half online. Just a reminder, what you're doing for participation. Put down, you're not selecting your topic. Put down 5 topics that you think is a viable topic, right? 5 topics, like for the death penalty, against the death penalty. And by the way, it doesn't mean you support it. You can be like, me personally, I'm against tax cuts. I hate tax cuts. I think they're worthless. By the way, I've had students who give tax cut speeches and grade them fairly. We've already talked about that in class, but I just wanted a reminder. That's why I mentioned that tax cut thing. But here's the thing. Even if you're against something, you can say advocates. I just need 5 viable topics, and that way other students can see and they can look and say, oh yeah, here's a possibility. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something you support or against. You just put 5. So technically now no one could do this, but someone could say pro-choice, pro-life speeches. This is the only time abortion is banned. You can't do that because that's an easy 2 right there. So yeah, go ahead and put 5 viable speeches. By the way, if you see other, no, I'm not going to change what I usually do, but I'm just thinking. Okay, let's move on. All right, we're going to go back. We're going to go back to this one right here. We first started because I wanted you guys to know the word persuasion. And again, persuasion, just to sum it up real quickly, is anytime you change someone's mind or change their behavior. That's when you persuade someone. And I know this hybrid is used for high school classes, but I really don't care, because some people are like, you shouldn't mention this, but um, it's college class. The best way to understand persuasion is when someone asks somebody out on a date. It is persuasion. The first persuasion of mankind, of womankind, of all kind, um, is finding a mate, right? Finding a mate. That's the first persuasion. That's the first human persuasion. Finding someone, and then also finding a tribe and finding. Then it grew from there, right? And it's important to note that because that's such a basic thing that it's easy to understand a persuasion, because in the moment of asking someone on a date, you change their mind because maybe beforehand they didn't think of you that way. And when you ask somebody on a date, change their behavior because maybe they weren't going to do anything on Friday night. Now they are. Or maybe they're going to change their behavior by avoiding you from now on because they know how you feel. Do you see that? So but that's why I use that one a lot. It's like the basic persuasion. All right. So that's a good way to remember persuasion, changing minds, changing behaviors. Anything else is when you're not, there's no change. It's just mid. It's middle, in the middle, informative, not nothing. All right. So attitude, beliefs, value. That's a good start. So attitude is like or dislike, right? That's your attitude on something. Belief is what you um I'm so used to having the book in front of me. I have the book, but I don't want to get it. Belief is whether something is true or false, true or false. And then value is right or wrong, good or bad, right? And value, I just want to add something to it. Value usually has weight to it when you discuss value. So the best way to understand attitude, beliefs, and value is Taco Bell. So my attitude on Taco Bell is I like Taco Bell, right? Right. Think about when I'm giving my attitude. If you dislike Taco Bell, I'm just gonna put that in the back of your head. My belief is that if someone asks me, "Do you believe Taco Bell is Mexican food?" My belief is false. It is not Mexican food. So, true or false, you have your own beliefs on that. Value is Taco Bell a good representation of fast food? I would say yes. That is correct. That is right. That is good. That's a good statement, right? And so forth. And just think about that for a second. Attitude, like or dislike. Hey, do you like Taco Bell? Yes, no, yeah, well, no real debate, nothing to argue. I mean, there's some people who argue about like or dislike, but it doesn't really go anywhere. Belief, you think something's true or false? If it's Mexican food, no, it's not. It's false. False Mexican food. Oh, I think it's true. We have our opinions. It's not much. There's not much depth there. There's not much weight. But value is where you get the real debate, because value is whether or not, and this is where problem solution lies a lot as well. Value is where you start debating things. So if I think Taco Bell is a good represent, if I say it's the best representation of fast food, that's a debatable thing. I think that's a correct statement. I think that's a good statement. I think that's a right statement. And the reason why, because here's why there's debate in value more than attitude and belief, because you have to kind of explain that because there's a little bit more to it. And so when I debate it, I would say, well, Taco Bell is cheap, it's fast, and it's filling. That's the quintessential three for fast food, right? Just think about that. Think about what you think is the quintessential, the best example of fast food out there. I'm not saying the best fast food, because me personally, I think the best fast food for me right now, because I love their burgers, is Shake Shack. Right? Shake Shack, is that the name of it? I always get it confused with that other steak shack place. Anyways, yeah, I love their burgers, and they're great. Especially the one in Pasadena. I don't know why Pasadena's is better than all the others, but That's how it works, right? That's where you debate. Because some people, I've had students say in and out, and they explain in and out, and so forth. And I had people who, will talk about, Jack in the Box, Wendy's. I have students say Subway, McDonald's. That's a popular one, McDonald's, and so forth. And they'll have like, that they'll have, statements to follow that up. That's why value has a little more weight to it. There's more to debate there, and there's more to it than attitude and belief. That's important to remember. Ethos, logos, pathos. This is something you're going to hear in other college classes, English courses, psychology, of course, philosophy, big one, big one, political science. So ethos, logos, pathos from Aristotle, a Greek philosopher, pretty much started it all with philosophy in a way. So Socrates, well, you know what I mean. Anyways, that era, modern philosophy. And the reason why I bring it up is ethos, logos, pathos. By the way, these are on the test. Same thing with the other terms I just said, but ethos, logos, pathos, definitely on the test. Pathos, oh no, by the way, ethos, logos, pathos. The best way to remember these words is what um English word do you think when you hear ethos, right? And so when you think ethos, the word that most people say is ethics, and that is correct. Ethos is ethics. Ethos equals ethics. Ethos equals ethics. That's how you remember ethos. It's the ethics. It's the morality of the persuader, right? The morality, the ethics of the persuader. And we talked already about the importance of ethics in this class, especially in persuasion, if someone's ethical or not. So their morality and so forth. And we tend to go for communal ethic standards. Logos. Logos, what word looks exactly like logos in English? Logic. Basic logic. Logos equals logic. Logos equals logic. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because logos equals logic. It also legal rationale, right? Rationality. So logos equals logic and rationality. It's how you reason, right? That's the reason part, the deductive reasoning, deductive. We'll talk about that later. But it's the reason, it's the rationality, it's the logic of the persuader. Now, pathos is a little bit harder to remember because ethos equals ethics, logos equals logic, pathos equals what? Well, you might already know it. If not, that's okay. Look at the word pathos. What word is in pathos? What word is in pathos? First four letters, path. And the best way to remember pathos is when you're persuading someone, the emotional path you take. The emotional path you take. Whatever emotion, whatever feelings you go for, whatever thing that you're trying to get your audience angry, you're trying to get your audience sad, you're trying to get them, riled up, you're trying to get them happy, you're trying to get them excited. That's an emotional path you are taking with your audience, with your people. That is pathos there. So the best way to remember pathos equals path, pathos equals path, pathos equals emotional path you take. All right. It's important words, very important words. We'll talk about it more later. ELM of persuasion. That's elaboration likelihood model of persuasion. You don't need to really know the ELM part of ELM, just ELM, right? And it's pretty much the route you take when you persuade somebody. And there's three terms that cover um, ELM of persuasion. First off is elaborate. You elaborate with the content you bring up, the examples, so forth. We talk about elaboration all the time in this class. So when you elaborate on something, you're, in a way even when you're informative, you're telling people this stuff is important. But elaboration with ELM is purposeful elaboration to change minds, change behavior. And there's two routes that you could take. You take the direct persuasion route, and you take the indirect persuasion route, right? I'm gonna get the book for this one, just because I don't want people, because I have my abbreviated, more common sense thing, but it does sound a bit different than the official definition. So let me give you the official definition. of it. 23. Big chapter, by the way. Big chapter. This is a chapter that has the only image in this class. So, ooh, image. Direct persuasion route, that you follow when you elaborate, consciously think about or critically evaluate a message. Indirect persuasion route is in which you don't elaborate, are more influenced by peripheral factors of the message and messenger, right? Emotional reaction. So, what's the best way to understand this? Let's bring up homelessness again. If I talk about how much money we spend every year on homelessness, either cleanup, intervention, um, you know, um, rehab, maintenance, healthcare, whatever. How much money we spend, or how many people are homeless, or the percentage of homeless out there. Like in New York, the percentage of unsheltered, meaning people that are out on the street, percentage of the homeless in New York City that are it's like 25 to 35% of the homeless population. In Los Angeles, it's around 70, 80% of the homeless population is unsheltered, meaning out on the street in tents, stuff like that. That's direct. That is hardcore numbers. That's you have to explain it, elaborate, and so forth. Indirect persuasion route on homelessness is when you say something like, you ever when you drive down the street and you just pass by all the homeless tents, or you look at it and you think, how many of those tents have kids that have to live there? That's indirect. It's when you go after um, the emotion, when you go the peripheral, right? You're not saying how much money that's being spent. You're just saying, think about that for a second. Think about all the people that are houseless, but we don't consider them houseless because they're sleeping on someone's couch or sleeping in the back of a car. That's a houseless person. That's a person that is considered homeless. That's an indirect, right? You're not really elaborating on the direct issues, not giving numbers or fact. You're just going after the emotion stuff, the peripheral. How much how much you see the city that you grew up in run down by the homeless situation? Indirect. Lastly is motivation. This is an important term to later, but I wanted to fit it on, slide management. Wanted to make sure my slides are well balanced in the amount of words and so forth. So motivation, where is that word? Nope, went too far. Went way too far. Motivation is the underlying internal force that drives people to achieve their goals. So we're going to stop right now. We'll get back to motivation when we get to the hierarchy stuff. The thing is, we're going to stop right now because we still have speeches going on and so forth. Try to catch up with all the work. We're almost done. All right. And yeah, have a good one.